When my family took DNA tests, we discovered that none of us were actually related to each other. Then, when I cornered my mother, she confessed the shocking truth. We were all stolen children from different families, and she had been lying for 30 years. The Martinez family had always prided themselves on being close-knit and loving. Elena, Marcus, Sofia, and teenage Diego were the kind of siblings who genuinely enjoyed spending time together, and their parents Carmen and Roberto had created what everyone considered to be the perfect family environment in their suburban Phoenix home. Christmas had always been their favorite time of year, filled with traditions that brought them even closer together. They would spend weeks planning elaborate holiday meals, exchanging thoughtful gifts, and creating memories that reinforced their strong family bonds. This particular Christmas would be different from all the others, but not in the way anyone could have anticipated. Elena, the eldest at 28 and always the family organizer, had suggested trying ancestry DNA tests as their group Christmas activity for the year. She had seen the advertisements during Black Friday sales and thought it would be fun to learn more about their Mexican heritage and family history. Her siblings were immediately enthusiastic about the idea, eager to discover what ethnicities they carried and maybe connect with distant relatives. What none of them realized was that this innocent family activity would expose the most devastating secret imaginable. Carmen and Roberto had always been somewhat evasive about their family background and early history. Whenever their children asked about grandparents, cousins, or extended family members, their parents would provide vague answers about families that had died young or relatives who had lost touch over the years. The children had accepted these explanations because their immediate family unit was so strong and loving. The Martinez parents had built their family life around the principle that blood was thicker than water and that family loyalty was the most important value in life. They constantly reinforced how lucky they were to have each other and how their bond was unbreakable. Looking back, their children would realize how much emphasis their parents had always placed on never questioning family history or trying to contact extended relatives. When Elena first proposed the DNA testing idea, Carmen and Roberto showed unexpected resistance to what should have been harmless fun. They claimed that ancestry testing was unreliable and potentially dangerous, arguing that giving DNA samples to companies could lead to privacy violations or government surveillance. Their reaction seemed disproportionate to their children, who couldn't understand why their parents were so opposed to learning more about their heritage. But what their parents were really afraid of was far more sinister than privacy concerns. But the four siblings were persistent and persuasive, eventually convincing their parents that it would be a fun family bonding experience. Carmen and Roberto finally agreed to participate, though they continued to express reservations about the process. The family ordered 6 DNA test kits and completed them together on Christmas morning, treating it as a special family activity while opening their other presents. What they submitted to the laboratory would expose the most elaborate criminal deception any family had ever maintained. 6 weeks later, Elena received the first results via email, and what she saw on her laptop screen defied all logic and scientific possibility. According to the detailed DNA analysis, she shared no genetic material whatsoever with any of the family members who had also submitted samples. The testing company's website clearly indicated that none of the people she had grown up calling her siblings or parents were actually related to her by blood. But this was only the beginning of discoveries that would shatter everything they believed about their identity. Elena's first instinct was to assume there had been a laboratory error or sample mix-up. DNA testing companies occasionally made processing mistakes, and it seemed impossible that she could be completely unrelated to the family she had known for 28 years. She immediately contacted the customer service department to report what she believed was obviously a technical error that needed immediate correction. But here's where the story takes its first shocking turn. Every other family member was receiving identical results that defied explanation. Marcus called Elena within hours of opening his own DNA report, his voice shaking with confusion and growing alarm. His results showed the exact same impossible pattern: No genetic connection to any other family member who had participated in the testing. Sofia's results arrived that same afternoon, followed by Diego's the next morning, and each report told the same scientifically impossible story. When the family gathered for an emergency meeting that weekend, the atmosphere was thick with tension and growing suspicion. Elena had prepared a detailed presentation showing all of their results, hoping that seeing everything together would help identify the source of the error. But as they reviewed the data, it became clear that 6 different laboratories had processed their samples, making a systematic error highly unlikely. That's when Elena noticed that her parents' behavior during the meeting was far too suspicious for people who should have been equally confused by the results. Carmen and Roberto seemed nervous and evasive when confronted with the DNA evidence, rather than sharing their children's confusion about the apparent laboratory errors. Instead of joining in their children's efforts to understand what had gone wrong, they became defensive and insisted that DNA testing was unreliable and shouldn't be trusted. Their reactions triggered Elena's professional instincts as a forensic accountant who specialized in uncovering financial fraud and deception. What Elena discovered when she started investigating would reveal that her parents' nervous behavior was hiding something much darker than anyone could imagine. Elena began asking pointed questions about their family history, birth certificates, and early childhood memories that her parents had shared over the years. Carmen and Roberto's answers became increasingly inconsistent and contradictory with each question. They claimed not to remember important details about their children's births, couldn't locate crucial documents like hospital records, and seemed to be improvising explanations as the questioning continued. But what Elena discovered when she started investigating their family's official records would reveal a criminal conspiracy that had been maintained for nearly 3 decades. Elena's forensic accounting background had taught her how to trace documentation and verify official records through government databases. She began by requesting copies of birth certificates, hospital records, and adoption documents from multiple state agencies. What she found in the official databases was far more shocking than anything the DNA tests had revealed about their family relationships. The birth certificates that the Martinez family had always believed were authentic turned out to be sophisticated forgeries. Elena discovered that Carmen and Roberto had been using false identity documents for decades, and that none of the 4 children they were raising had any legal documentation connecting them to their supposed parents. There were no adoption records, no custody transfers, and no legal proceedings that could explain how the children had come to live with Carmen and Roberto. But the truth about how they had obtained these children was even more horrifying than identity theft. Elena's investigation had revealed that Carmen and Roberto weren't even their real names, and that the couple had been living under false identities since the early 1990s. Their actual names were Angela and Ricardo Vega, and they had been participants in a sophisticated criminal organization that specialized in illegal adoption and child trafficking operations across the southwestern United States. What Elena was about to discover about how they had obtained their children would be the most devastating revelation of all. When Elena confronted her supposed parents with this evidence, their response confirmed her worst fears about the scope of their deception. Instead of showing surprise or confusion about the identity theft allegations, Carmen and Roberto immediately became hostile and defensive. They demanded to know how Elena had obtained access to confidential records and accused her of violating their privacy by investigating their background. But here's where Elena forced them to reveal the full truth about their criminal activities and the children they had been raising. Elena had prepared for this confrontation by organizing all of her evidence and recording the conversation on her smartphone. She presented Carmen and Roberto with copies of forged birth certificates, false identity documents, and missing person reports that she had discovered during her investigation. When faced with overwhelming proof of their crimes, their defensive facade finally cracked. Carmen began crying and claiming that they had provided loving homes for children who would have otherwise suffered in poverty or neglect. She insisted that the 4 siblings had been better off with them than with their original families, and that they had rescued the children from difficult situations. But Elena had already investigated the biological families and knew that this justification was completely false. What Carmen confessed next would reveal the true scope of their criminal operation and destroy any remaining illusions about their motives. Roberto tried a different approach, threatening Elena with consequences if she revealed what she had discovered. He warned that exposing their family situation would destroy the relationships between the siblings and cause psychological damage that could never be repaired. He claimed that the children's biological families had moved on with their lives and wouldn't want to be contacted about children they had lost decades earlier. That's when Elena revealed that she had already contacted federal authorities and that criminal investigators were already building a case against them. Elena informed Carmen and Roberto that she had been working with FBI agents who specialized in child trafficking cases and that they had confirmed the scope of the criminal network that had operated during the 1990s. The couple that had raised Elena and her siblings were facing federal charges, including kidnapping, child trafficking, fraud, conspiracy, and organized criminal activity. Carmen finally broke down and confessed the full truth about how they had obtained the 4 children they had been raising. Each sibling had been stolen or illegally purchased from different families across 3 states during a period when Angela and Ricardo were active participants in a child trafficking network that sold healthy infants to couples who couldn't legally adopt through legitimate channels. But the most heartbreaking discovery was still to come. The FBI investigation that followed Elena's evidence led to the arrest and prosecution of Carmen and Roberto on multiple federal charges. Their house was searched by federal agents who discovered additional forged documents, false identification papers, and evidence that they had been receiving payments from criminal associates as recently as the previous year. The scope of their criminal network was far larger than anyone had initially suspected. Angela and Ricardo were convicted on all charges and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called their case one of the most disturbing examples of family deception and organized criminal activity that had ever been prosecuted in federal court. Their victims' impact statements during sentencing detailed decades of psychological damage caused by their crimes. But the most meaningful part of the justice process was the reunion with biological families that Elena had coordinated during the investigation. Each of the 4 siblings was able to locate and reconnect with their biological parents and extended families, many of whom had spent decades and thousands of dollars searching for their stolen children without success. The DNA testing company that had inadvertently exposed the crimes provided additional testing services to confirm the biological family connections. Elena's biological parents had divorced 5 years after her disappearance, unable to cope with the loss and the stress of their endless search efforts. Marcus's family had never had other children, holding on to hope that their son would someday return home safely. What happened when these families were finally reunited would prove that some bonds are stronger than time and trauma. But here's where the story becomes a testament to the resilience of human relationships and the power of truth to heal even the most devastating wounds. Despite learning that their entire family history was based on criminal deception, the 4 siblings chose to maintain their close relationships with each other while also building new connections with their biological families. They had grown up together, supported each other through childhood challenges, and developed genuine love and loyalty that wasn't diminished by the lack of genetic connection or the criminal circumstances of their upbringing. Elena took the lead in coordinating relationships between all the affected families, using her organizational skills to plan gatherings where everyone could meet and begin the complex healing process together. The biological parents were initially cautious about accepting the siblings' continued relationships with each other, but they gradually came to understand that the bonds formed during childhood were real and valuable, regardless of genetics. The criminal convictions also led to the identification and recovery of additional victims from the same trafficking network. Elena's investigation had exposed a criminal enterprise that had affected dozens of families, and federal authorities were able to solve multiple cold cases and reunite other stolen children with their biological families who had never stopped searching. 3 years after the initial DNA test discovery, the extended Martinez-Vega families have created a new kind of family structure that is stronger and more authentic than what they had before. The 4 siblings maintain their close relationships while also enjoying individual connections with their biological families, creating an extended network of love and support that enriches everyone involved. Elena has become an advocate for other victims of child trafficking, using her forensic accounting skills and personal experience to help law enforcement agencies investigate similar cases. She has developed protocols for using DNA testing and financial investigation techniques to identify victims and gather evidence for criminal prosecutions. Her work has helped solve additional cases and reunite more families. The biological families have all worked together to support the healing process and build genuine relationships based on honesty and choice rather than obligation or guilt. Elena's biological parents remarried each other after reconnecting through their daughter's return, and they have worked together to help all 4 siblings navigate the complex process of building relationships with multiple families. The siblings chose to keep using the Martinez name professionally while also embracing their original family names in their personal relationships. They have created new holiday traditions that include both their biological families and their chosen family bonds with each other, building something beautiful from the devastation of learning that their childhood was based on criminal deception. Angela and Ricardo remain in federal prison, where they continue to face additional charges as more victims come forward and more evidence of their criminal network is discovered. They have shown no remorse for their crimes and continue to maintain that they provided good homes for the children they trafficked, even when confronted with the devastating impact their actions had on multiple families. But their victims have moved far beyond the trauma of their crimes to build authentic relationships based on truth, choice, and genuine love. The 4 siblings often reflect on how their decision to do a simple Christmas DNA test led to the exposure of a massive criminal enterprise, the resolution of decades-old crimes, and the creation of an extended family network that is more meaningful than anything they had known before. The DNA test that had initially seemed like devastating news had actually been the key to unlocking truth, justice, and authentic relationships. Sometimes the most painful discoveries lead to the most meaningful healing, and facing the truth about their stolen childhoods had allowed them to build the genuine family connections they deserved. Elena frequently speaks at conferences about victim advocacy and the unexpected ways that modern technology can help solve cold cases and reunite families. She emphasizes that while learning the truth about their origins was traumatic, it ultimately gave them the freedom to build authentic relationships based on choice and love, rather than deception and criminal activity. The Martinez siblings continue to support each other while also maintaining strong connections with their biological families, proving that family bonds can be based on love and loyalty, rather than just genetics or legal documents. Their story has become an inspiration for other trafficking victims and has helped raise awareness about the ongoing need for vigilance in protecting children from criminal networks. In the end, the Christmas DNA test that destroyed their original family structure had given them something far more valuable: the truth that allowed them to build genuine, authentic relationships with people who chose to love and support them. Sometimes the most devastating discoveries lead to the most beautiful healing, and the Martinez family had learned that real family bonds are strengthened by honesty rather than weakened by difficult truths. Sometimes the most devastating discoveries lead to the most beautiful healing. Our DNA test destroyed the family we thought we knew, but it gave us the truth that allowed us to build the authentic relationships we deserved all along. What would you do if a simple family activity revealed that your entire life was based on criminal deception? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for daily shocking family drama stories like this one. Smash that like button if this incredible story amazed you. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Comment your thoughts and share your own family discovery experiences. We upload a brand new jaw-dropping real-life story every single day. Don't miss tomorrow's shocking tale that will leave you speechless. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next incredible story.